I love the works of Adrian Tchaikovsky. In my mind, he is the finest science fiction writer working today. His novel Children of Time, which won the Arthur C. Clarke Award, is my favourite science fiction novel. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Children of Time is special because for me, it is the pinnacle of the very thing that makes the science fiction genre so special: discovery and wonder. What if the most advanced species on a planet, a species that could create something that we would call society, were spiders? What would that society look like? And to go even further, how would we communicate and interact with that species? In a way, Alien Clay, Adrian Tchaikovsky's newest novel, does something kind of similar. Once again, this is Tchaikovsky tackling big ideas, but in many small ways, Alien Clay goes further in its exploration of the very point of science fiction than anything he's done before has managed to do. For that reason, Alien Clay might be Adrian Tchaikovsky's finest novel to date. So let's talk about why. What makes Alien Clay so unique and so powerful is that it doesn't just blend politics with scientific discovery and curiosity. It actually stitches those two things together as inseparable themes and plot elements. They are intrinsically tied up together, almost to the point of being one and the same, all while being set on a strange, potentially hostile, and inarguably exciting alien world. Alien Clay is set sometime in Earth's future, where our home planet seems to be controlled and run by a fascistic, tyrannical government called the Mandate. The Mandate uses the veneer of science in order to create neatly organized and easily controlled binaries amongst its people. Much like how many kingdoms and rulers throughout history have used the law of religion to control their people, the Mandate does something very similar with its own interpretation of science. But for the Mandate's grip to remain tight around the people, that science has to kind of be obeyed, which makes it very, very easy for scientists and even artists and curious people to learn and discover and teach things that go against the Mandate's mandate. Those people are dissidents, they are arrested, they are removed from society. This is something that we've also seen in many fascistic governments before, and we continue to see today. But what's so curious about the way that all of this is told to us through the novel is that at no point are we on Earth. And everything we learn is told to us by our first-person narrator protagonist, a man named Dardev. Dardev is one of these intellectuals. He's a xenobiologist, he's a professor, he's an academic, and like many scientists, he has been part of multiple revolutionary, hopeful uprisings against the Mandate. They've been chasing him and trying to prove that he was involved in these for quite a while. Eventually, he was caught, and he was shipped off to another planet. And everything we learn about how the Mandate works is told to us by him, drip-fed throughout the novel. And for that reason, we never get a really clear vision of what the Mandate is. This isn't like George Orwell's 1984, where you have the full concept of Big Brother and the oligarchy behind it very well laid out in front of you. This is not that. And I really like the way that it does that. This returns to what I said before about how the scientific element, the curiosity, the discovery, it's all stitched in with the politics. Partly because everything we learn is being told to us by a scientist who is also a dissident, but also because of where we are throughout the novel. We are on this curious alien world. That world is nicknamed Kiln, and on Kiln we have a human base camp. That base camp is made up of a labor force, and that entire labor force are prisoners like Dardev, dissidents and revolutionaries who were caught and shipped here to work. Most, if not all of them, are scientists and academics, people whose skills and knowledge are valuable in this place. And those who control them and look after them are also scientists, but they toe the line. They follow the Mandate, and they are the prison wardens and guards. What makes Kiln so special is that in the future that Alien Clay presents, we have managed to explore like 70 planets using probes, using unmanned craft, and we've managed to set foot on a few of those 70-ish planets. And from what we've seen, some of them contain very basic life. Single-celled organisms, stuff like that. Evidence of life, but not intelligent life. until they found Kiln. Kiln is a planet that seems to have had at one point intelligent life on it. And the reason we think that is because this planet is littered with structures, architecture that must have been built by intelligent hands. And all of that architecture has been scrawled with what might be a language. As Dardev says, it's hard to assume anything. We don't know if this was a language, we don't know if it was made by hand, we don't know if these things had hands. There are so many things that you cannot assume about how alien biology, evolution, and cognition works. Or worked. But the big question is, if these structures were made by some kind of intelligent life form, where are they now? They are not on this planet as far as we can tell. Humans have been on this planet for like a century at this point, and they are yet to find any evidence of these intelligent, Kilnish people who made the structures. And so throughout the novel, we follow Dardev. There is so much to learn about Kiln. There is a lot to learn about Dardev himself, the people that he is surrounded by, the work he has to do, which is extraordinarily dangerous, and the politics of it all. The politics of Earth, the fact that this is a forced labor camp, an internment camp, but an internment camp that is specifically for educated people who can serve a purpose on this planet. And of course, we know that whatever is discovered here will end up being twisted to fit the mandate's cause. One thing that we learn early on about the mandate is that it uses basic science to societally construct the idea of a pyramid with human beings on top. It's incredibly fascistic rhetoric that we've seen multiple groups do throughout history, especially those whose mandate is fueled by racism, using vague science to create a narrative that puts human beings on top, thus having not a God-given right to control, to command, to be powerful, but rather a science-given right. And who can argue with science? Because science can be proven. But if this science, the science of the mandate, can be proven, why are all these scientists being silenced and imprisoned and sent to planets to work as a labor force to discover things that will fit with the mandate? This is fascist politics brilliantly explored in a fun new way, especially because it's all told to us through Dardev. And that's where we come to the writing in this novel. Dardev is a first-person narrator. He speaks not just like a scientist, but almost like a poet. He waxes so lyrically about science, about discovery. He talks with pain and hatred. He is fueled by malice towards the mandate. And because we're very much in his head, we read on as he gets distracted, as he goes on tangents, as he has stray thoughts about the mandate, about history and art and literature, but obviously and especially science. Dardev is also certainly not wholly likable. There's a lot that will infuriate you about the way that he talks. And because he's not teaching the audience anything, he talks as if we already know this stuff, and so there's not really any exposition. You have to pick up everything that you pick up along the way. We're just in his head along for the ride. The narration is incredibly unique in this book. Dardev just hits the ground running, and you learn as you go. You're stuck in his brain, you hear all of his secret thoughts, all of his sarcasm, all of his bitterness, it's all in there. It comes out randomly like stray fireworks going off. And the way he describes the events of the novel, the people that he meets, the journeys that he goes on, the discoveries that are made, it is all very poetic because he has this romantic love for science. Therefore, it feels like nothing is ever completely clear-cut. This isn't a third-person narrator that says, they found this thing, it looked like this, and this is what it means. Instead, he waxes on and on and on about the beauty of this thing, describes it in a way that he wants to describe it. It reminds him of a specific thing from his life, his past, and he'll then get distracted and think about that thing. In this way, the book is way more complex than it needs to be, because Dardev as a narrator adds an extra level of complexity through his personality. But that is genius writing. It's brilliant because I know Dardev so well, so uncomfortably intimately. I think that's brilliant writing. And it doesn't stop, it doesn't let up, he doesn't calm down at any point. Tchaikovsky knows Dardev. He was clearly so committed to getting us deep inside this man's head and having us locked in there. It's a real dedication to the craft of narration, as well as the craft of making a good protagonist. And because of Dardev, this is why the politics and the scientific discovery feel so stitched together. But there's another reason they feel stitched together, and I can't really talk about it because it would spoil the novel. To just tease you without spoiling anything overtly, discoveries are made on Kiln. The things we want to learn, we will start to learn, and they will continually feed back in a kind of loop to their political situation, to the politics on Earth that led them there. And not in any direct way, but rather a metaphorical or thematic way. But despite it being metaphorical to a point, it feeds the actions, the thoughts, the beliefs of our protagonists. And their actions in turn affect where they came from, and it all goes in a beautiful cycle. These are political prisoners, intelligent people, who've been given a task of discovering and learning and understanding, and so they go out and they do that, and what they learn feeds back. It's all a beautiful loop. And as we get deeper and deeper in and we learn more and more, you see the themes and the metaphors at play here. It's very clear to see what Tchaikovsky's politics are, what his beliefs are. They are ones that certainly align with how I think and how I feel. None of it is mysterious. I wouldn't say any of it's really up for interpretation. I briefly mentioned the word binary at the very beginning because the mandate creates binaries that are easy to control and easy to uphold. And for that reason, in a very on-the-nose way, Adrian Tchaikovsky has added a non-binary character. That exact terminology is never used, they are just referred to using they-them pronouns. And Dardev makes a point of saying that this very person's existence, their identity, who they are as a living, breathing person, goes against the rigid, angular rules of the mandate. It's on the nose, but it's undeniably cute and kind of brilliant. But going back to Children of Time for a second, I said at the beginning what my favourite thing about this book is. The fact that this is science fiction at its finest, because it's the biggest what-if scenario I've ever seen in a sci-fi novel. What if spiders? And what makes Alien Clay so great is that it's that again. It sets us down on an alien world with incredible discoveries to make. We learn very, very early on in the first act of the novel that the ecology, the ecosystem on this planet, Kiln, operates in a way that we have never seen before. I don't know how best to describe it other than to call it like Lego. Again, we learn this really early on, that all of the fauna on this planet are symbiotic in some way. Every single creature, whether it be large or small, is kind of compatible with every other. Like Lego, they can just kind of attach themselves to each other to create new Megazords. Power Rangers fans, you know, probably. Everything in this ecosystem is symbiotic. One parasite will live inside of another and work as its intestine and get a benefit from that. But when they do that, they create technically a whole new organism. These are interlocking creatures. And that means that the concept of species doesn't really exist. They don't evolve over time, they just connect to each other, like Lego. It's fascinating, it's so cool, and this is the moment where you can see the genius of how Adrian Tchaikovsky sees the possibilities of science fiction. Picture a planet, what's its ecosystem? I know, Lego. Like, what the fuck? How does he do this stuff? It's really amazing, the stuff he comes up with. And it all is so positive. It's all fueled by curiosity and what ifs. Oh, imagine if this thing. I can picture him smiling as he writes this stuff down. Oh, imagine if spiders. Oh, imagine if Lego people. Like, it's brilliant. I love his passion and his curiosity. It's so infectious. Every new sci-fi novel that comes out from Adrian Tchaikovsky is usually a massive what-if scenario, and I get so excited to learn the details of that what-if and where he goes with that story. But what elevates Alien Clay beyond all of that is the fact that it's so intrinsically linked to politics, to uprisings, to fascism, to the proletariat rising up against the bourgeoisie. I'm a socialist. I'm a big fan of this stuff. And it's all linked to scientific curiosity, advancement, and discovery. Alien Clay is in so many ways my perfect sci-fi novel because it is so aggressively political in a really savvy way. I mean, for God's sake, the three parts that make up this three-act structure are called Liberté, Égalité, and Fraternité. But it's also a wonderful piece of explorative what-if sci-fi. And to top it all off, those two things are immovably, immutably linked together. They are almost one and the same in terms of the themes and the discovery and the plot of this novel. I am so satisfied by this book. It's amazing stuff. If you're a sci-fi fan, if you like your politics, you cannot miss out on Alien Clay. Check it out and subscribe for books.